Greetings, y'all, and welcome back to the Black Goddess Liberated, where we heal ancestral wounds, release pent-up racial tension, and find our belonging. I have gathered ritualists, mystics, storytellers, culture bearers, and creators who shine a light on lost histories and hidden ancestral truths. I'm your host, Dr. Giavanni Washington, your Black Goddess Guide and Ancestral Alchemist, and today we're going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to be interviewed by the entrepreneur extraordinaire, Mina Raver. Welcome, Mina. And let me just read to you Mina's bio. Mina Raver is the founder, and did I also say that Mina is my friend? This is also my dear friend Mina Raver. Mina Raver is the founder and CEO of Catalystium, an emerging neurotech company building resources and assistive tools to help neurodivergent professionals maximize their earning potential and quality of life. Beautiful. When she's not building companies or staring off into space, you'll find Mina playing 90s RPGs with her husband and 3 children, gardening, or deep in her research. Thank you so much, Mina.
It's my absolute pleasure.
Handing you the baton.
Fantastic. And I'm so excited, elated, and honored to be here. And I want to start out because we are going to get into it really, really quickly. So I want to start out by making sure that everybody knows who you are. Called to the medicine of ancestral restoration, Dr. Giavanni Washington creates healing opportunities to reconnect with lost histories and ignite hidden ancestral wisdom. Dedicated to amplifying Black beauty, reconnecting to the deep roots of Black divinity, and encouraging the full expression of Black joy. Dr. Giavanni Washington's latest creative endeavor is the Black Goddess Within Oracle deck. Dr. G, as she is affectionately known, is an intuitive healer, a mother, speaker, and spiritual guide who holds a doctorate from UCLA's Department of World Arts and Culture and was recently selected for the California Creative Corps Artist and Culture Bearer Fellowship. That was amazing, by the way, by the California Arts Council, aka Queen.
We have arrived. We are here.
Right. Now, I want to just jump absolutely right in by talking a little bit about the deck. Dr. G, what draws me to you and what enlivened me most about your work is the spirit of sober celebration that you bring to everything around you. You see the world for what it is, which means that you both acknowledge the ways that Black bodies are institutionally abused to this very day, but also you're always emerging from the extra weight of the suffering being commodified and weaponized, and it gives you the power you share with us. You share with us this power of seeing Blackness in our natural state of elation. And that really is, in my experience, the through line spirit of the deck and all of the rest of the work that you do. So with that said, if you can't tell, I'm a major fan. How did you emerge in this way, and how did you transmute this realization into this deck?
Oh, it's a good question, Mina. It's a good question. Well, let's see. I mean, this really is about my why, my big mission is to make the world safer for Black people, right? And it started for me, it was very personal. It was about my son, who was 5 years old when the Ferguson debacle happened, when those 4 policemen who killed Michael Brown were acquitted. I was working with a group of Black women. We were doing goddess work. It wasn't the deck, but we were working with goddesses from Africa. And we were meeting on the day of the acquittal. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, shit, what do I say to these women? Like, who, most of whom were mothers. Many of us had Black boys. And I don't actually remember the conversation that we had, but I do remember that we walked away with a very clear sense that we had to change the way the world sees the Black body. And so there was a couple of other things that happened, but very soon after, one of them was my son being told that the color Black, like the crayon color Black, was bad. And in his little 5-year-old brain, he translated that to me. He literally came home and said, well, mommy, Black is bad. And so then I'm bad because I'm Black. And that, broke my heart. I've made all these choices and decisions in my life to make sure that he was in a space where well, to make sure is the wrong word, but to attempt to have him in a space where he would be valued for who he is as a person and
Mm,
not for what his body signifies in this country. And I just felt like a failure. I failed, and I failed it by the time he was 5. I failed, probably multiple times over. And I sometimes think that it doesn't always make, like, it's not a direct line between the Black goddesses and making it okay for my then 5-year-old, now 13-year-old Black son, who is no longer cute, right? He's not cute by the standards of the world. He is now a threat. And I don't mean him specifically, but teenage Black boys,
right.
and of which he is one. So him specifically. Um, I it just it was like it was just a compulsion, right? Like, there's nothing I'm not gonna do. I'll say that in positive. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that he is safe and that I can shrink and or remove the target on his back. Right. And to me, that was okay. Well, I'm already working with these goddesses. I love tarot and oracle cards. And at the same time, had the realization that, most of these mythologies are, Greek or Roman or European. Um, and very rarely do I see a body of color. Occasionally I would see a Kuan Yin, occasionally I would see a Kali, but mostly they were white-bodied beings. And that's fine, right? That these tarot cards are the oracle industry is portraying wisdom from those places, but there's also wisdom from other places,
Right.
right? And I wanted to see my reality and my experience reflected. I wanted to honor the break in colonialism, right? The middle passage that separated us from our spiritual centers. I talk about this in various places, but I feel like I'm jumping way ahead, but on my spiritual journey, um, I would, I found myself in places where, first of all, in the Black church, I was ridiculed and alienated because I was always asking questions, right? So I was
Right.
like, okay, well, this is not the place for me. And then when I would go on my spiritual journey and other modalities or other religions or spiritual systems, I was often the only Black person in the room. And in some cases, not often, but there were a couple of times, maybe 3 times, when I actually let my guard down and was like, oh, I'm just a person here. I'm a spiritual being. I hold the same space as every other spirit in this room. Nope, you have a Black body and we're not going to let you forget it. Right? And in their best intentions, not intending to create harm, doing good work in the world, still creating harm. And so I was like, we have to create this deck in the world to give people a chance to have, and not just Black people, also white people or non-Black people need to know that there's wisdom and value and resource in African spirit and spiritualities from Africa.
Mhm.
That was a very
And not
long.
just know, right? Because again, when I think of you, I think of celebration. And
Mhm.
what you've given everyone is an opportunity to not just know that this wisdom exists, but to share and to celebrate that this
Ashe,
wisdom exists and has been brought back to us.
ashe. I concur. Absolutely. Our tagline is Black beauty, Black divinity, and Black joy. And it's interesting because when we did this summit the first year, last year, I got about halfway through the interviews, like, so person number 5, and I was like, oh, because it was called the Black Goddess Reimagined. And I was like, no, this is actually about liberation, right? This is
Yeah.
about the Black Goddess Liberated. And I've been interviewing elders this year for the Black God deck that is, we're at the beginning of that process. And I always ask them, like, well, what does liberation mean to you? And I'm getting, it's our birthright. It's about joy. It's about choice. It's about unencumbered. It's about, like, we usually define liberation as what it's not. So it's anti-colonial or decolonial, anti-racist, dismantling the patriarchy, down with white supremacy. I'm like, no, 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 no. Like, so okay. In a world where those things don't exist, what is liberation? Right. And so I feel like the deck also gives us a moment to really define liberation for ourselves, which may look different for me than for you, but even that, and it's the fact that we can have different definitions of liberation is in fact a point of joy, right? I think the cards give us an access to daily practice, right? And so, like, you pull a card a day and you work with the energy of that card, the wisdom of that card, but joy is also a daily practice. So it's like all of these things sort of layer on top of each other. Like these are choices and practices that we need to partake in daily.
Absolutely. And it's exciting to see because you're absolutely right. And again, that's one of the things that draws me to you. I've been an activist forever.
Forever.
And it has, up until I met you and up until I started really kind of absorbing a lot of things, the things that you've brought into the world, at least since I've known you, I was willing to rise to the existence as a confrontation to the patriarchy, is the opposition to white supremacy or, you know, white feminism or whatever else. But I love that you brought so many opportunities to redefine liberation as simply disengaging from those things and existing in joy and celebration. And
it's not centering the continued harm.
right, non-centering.
Right. Yeah, let's center something else. Let's center something else. And it's interesting. I'm just going to say this here as an honoring of what I'm currently going through without going into the whole story. I'm clear that my ancestors did not want me to suffer, right? They want us to know joy. I'm also clear that at least some of us still have to look at the wound and still have to look at the trauma. Like we can't look away, right? And so I feel like this is my own personal, it's a task that I've been sort of reassigned very recently. It's maybe apropos of nothing. I just feel like I need to say that to honor what's happening in the other parts of my life. But so yes, joy. And for me personally, also, I'm still working with the trauma. But I think it also deepens the impact of the goddess work if I can really sit in the wound of colonialism, right? It's not just a pretty picture, right? It's not just makeup and costume. Like these women who co-created this deck with me, they went through a process of personal spiritual development, getting to know their own inner goddess qualities, and then getting to know the goddess that they met on film. Like it was a healing on so many levels, right? And I feel like sometimes, you know, we're in theory kind of far away from slavery, right? Except not. And so I think we have a sort of a national amnesia about the trauma of slavery, right? About slavery and then its trauma, even though we've had Jim Crow and the civil rights movement and Reconstruction that failed and all of those things, you know, we haven't ever really gotten away from the trauma. It's still with us. And so I don't know that we always name it as such. I think you know, like, oh, it's hard for Black people, but yeah, it's hard for a reason. It's hard for many, like it's not normal that it's hard. It has been normalized. It has been deliberate, methodical, and politicized. No, that's not what I want to say. The policies have been put in place. Policized? That's not the word either. But policies have been put in place.
In many ways, popularized.
Popular. Okay, I'll take it. Yeah, absolutely. And it's, you know, sometimes it's hard to continue to look at the pain that is inflicted on Black-bodied people, but it also shores up my determination and my dedication to this work, right? So that we can, in fact, have and really live into joy. I mean, I think we do joy well.
Yes.
I think we do joy well.
I believe it's our natural state. And probably, I mean, I think that's the natural state of all people. It takes a lot of time, energy, money, and violence to keep people from curiosity, seeking each other, and joy.
Yeah.
But I wonder, like, how you got here. Doctor, you went through some very rigorous, hyper-colonial, right? Academic institutionalization, and came out of it with not just a testament in your dissertation and your thesis to that history of pain, but also this entire language, both visual and spoken, for liberation. What was that journey like?
My PhD journey?
Yes, your PhD to spiritual awakening.
Okay. That's a different question. I thought you were asking me about the PhD. I was like, don't ask me about the PhD. There's still a little PTSD behind the PhD. Um,
I can
I
imagine.
will tell you, I mean, one of the things I joke about is that like I'm the most colonized because I've got this PhD, right? Because I spent so many years, decades in the hallowed halls of
Right. I think you
academia.
were right the first time.
The hell halls of academia. Um, it was almost like I checked a box, right? I was like, okay, I've done this thing that everyone said I should do, or that, my family definitely expected me to become a doctor. They expected me to become a medical doctor. People are still disappointed about that. But whatever. I've attained the highest degree in the land. Okay, check. I can go to what the hell I want now. And I didn't immediately come to this space. Um, but it was really hard to get a job, to be honest. Like to get a job as a professor in the humanities. I had a 2-year-old baby when I graduated, and my option was really to become an adjunct professor at many different universities. And I was like, I'm not going to drive all around LA County while I'm still breastfeeding this baby on demand. So that was out for me. And so it was about starting a business or finding some other way to generate income. And it was honestly the power of the drum. And I was like, this drum is medicine, which is what I wrote my dissertation about. Like this drum is medicine. This drum is helping communities mediate the trauma of slavery. And I want to bring this medicine, not necessarily about mediating the trauma of slavery, but I want to bring this medicine of the drum to the people. And so that's where my sort of business/spiritual journey started. I feel like they're one and the same. Um, and it was about how can we translate basically the metaphor of rhythm, into people's lives, the healing rhythms into people's lives. And that's where it started. There were some other things that happened that weren't necessarily associated with the PhD. Like I'm now gonna have to put a trigger warning on the conversation. I don't know if I've shared this with you, but I lost my boyfriend to suicide when it was before my PhD. I was in a different graduate program. So it was almost 20 years ago. I think I was like 27, 28, 29. I don't know. He killed himself and I found him, and I was completely traumatized. But it's also when it was like the veil between the living and the dead disappeared for me then. Like I think I was relatively unaware of it beforehand, but after he died, I was like, oh, I can see and hear things that I couldn't see and hear before. And so that happened. Then I started playing drums. Then I went to UCLA to get that PhD. And I went there for a different reason altogether, and ended up, while I was in the program of World Arts and Culture, as things should, they developed and matured. And I was like, oh, wait, actually, what I'm interested in is how these drums are really healing. And then that was what catapulted me after graduation into this realm of spirit and healing.
I see. And so tell me about your emergence of these communes with the goddesses. Where
Um,
do the goddesses come in?
probably through the tarot decks. I think I had an Egyptian tarot deck, and I ordered an Afro-Cuban Orisha tarot deck. And when it came, and this is before like Amazon Prime 2 Day, when it came, and there was some time between ordering it and it come, like the anticipation was great. Um, I pulled Oshun, who is the goddess of beauty and love and art from the Yoruba people of Nigeria, and she was white, like as white as those flowers white, right? And I was like,
Oh,
hold on, wait a second. I mean, if you see, let's see if I can find Oshun quickly in the deck. Oshun is from Nigeria. Yes, she's often portrayed as a mulatto woman or a mixed race woman in South America and the Caribbean and Cuba. But in Nigeria, she's not white. Like she's just not white. Like it was just so far from reality that I was really disturbed by that particular deck. And so I was like, okay, we have to make a deck. And this is the beautiful Oshun portrayed by or met by Ife, this is that arch in the back is Oshogbo, which is where the Oshun Festival happens every year. And her parents are actually from this state, right?
oh,
So
that's beautiful.
it is beautiful because we were not going to have Oshun in the deck. And she came and was like, you know what? This first goddess that I as assigned, I was like, she's like, I want a Nigerian goddess. And then it was like, okay, clearly we've been waiting for you to come. So she's portraying this goddess. So it's just, I don't know that when I started this, when we did the first deck back in 2016, I probably wasn't thinking or saying that I didn't have the vocabulary like divine, sacred feminine, or the black sacred feminine. But I think it's really important that we have spiritual tools that look like us, right? Because everywhere that people live, they've created stories.
Right.
Right. And those stories had characters, gods, energies, wisdom that look like them. So it makes sense that our deities that a deck that has deities in it from Africa would look like us, right?
Mhm.
Not like some, I don't know which ism it is. I don't know if it was patriarchy. I don't know if it was white supremacy. I don't know why that particular artist portrayed Oshun as a like almost ghostly white. I'm not sure what that was about. I didn't pursue it. I got rid of the deck. But I know now that when you Google God, image of God, 75% of the results are white male, presumably heterosexual, right? White male. And what happens is when you think you ascribe the same things to the white male God or supreme being that you then also ascribe to ascribe those same characteristics of leadership, of decision making, of power. You ascribe all of those characteristics to white male bodies, humans, right? And so if we are thinking as a culture, as in our imaginary, that God is white male, then it follows that the people in leadership positions are also white male, right? And
one follows the other for sure.
right. And so, but God doesn't only look like a white man. God also looks like the people who are dreaming her. Right. And so we need to be able to re-embrace the Black sacred feminine so that we can reimagine what power looks like, what sacred looks like. Like the sacred is in you, the sacred is in me. And so we need to, I think even I make this joke all the time, but it's not a joke. In one of the Muppet movies, there's a Kermit Jesus. There's a Jesus that's a frog because
I didn't see that.
it exists, right? And I'm like, it makes sense that I feel like I say this story all the time, but it's really true. Our gods look like the people who are dreaming them. And it's important for us now who have been separated from our spiritual traditions that we understand that gods and wisdom can come in bodies that look like ours, or forms that look like ours, right? It's about reclaiming the sacred. It's about what's possible for me when I've got a supreme being in whose image I was made, or who's reflected, who my image is reflected in their being.
Right.
That makes
And
sense?
that is a powerful medicinal truth. And I
Absolutely.
think another thing that we're missing in society are ways to really qualify and commemorate our passage through life. And I think that's one of the ways that you're expanding this relationship with the goddesses and all of the rest of your celebration is in rekindling our desire and use of rites of passage.
I think of rites of passage, and I was trying to think of ways to like explain this today. The usage of rites of passage is a reclamation of an ancient technology. So I come from an academic lineage that codified rites of passage. So my advisor was Al Roberts, his advisor was Victor Turner, and his advisor was Arnold van Gennep. Arnold van Gennep was the first anthropologist to quote unquote codify rites of passage. But rites of passage have been happening, codified in Africa, but rites of passage have been happening in indigenous communities since time immemorial, right? And they happen because it marks a person's passage or transition from one step to the next phase in their lives, right? So my teacher Malidoma Somé says part of the problem in the West is that we have incomplete initiations, right? Like people aren't recognized as moving from one to the other. So we have these extended adolescences. So we have a lot of adult age people who are not actually acting as adults, right?
Mm-hmm.
And just to take a moment and tell you about rites of passage, like simply or basically, there are 3 steps in the rite of passage. There is the separation, there is the liminal state, and there is the reaggregation. So in the separation, it's in the indigenous sense, like if we think about it as a coming of age, like sorry, when you're entering puberty, for example, the kids, the boys or the girls or whoever, they're taken away from their community and they're sequestered together. And while they're both, it's both an isolation from the community, but it also they're in community together. They're in their own community, right? And then for a certain amount of time that's determined by the elders, that group of kids is taught the knowledge, the skills, and the wisdom that they're going to need to re-enter society as adults, right? And so that knowledge, skills, and wisdom looks like whatever it looks like. And then and of course there are trials, there's tribulations, there's knowledge, there's passage of knowledge, maybe there's rituals that they're learning. And then at the end, when they're reaggregating into community and back into the community, there's a community witness threshold crossing. And this is the part that's really key, right? It's not just, okay, you're done, but it's like a graduation. You walk across the stage, the diploma is conferred upon you. Everybody in that auditorium knows that you have met the requirements, you have the knowledge, the skills, and the wisdom, and that you're now prepared for whatever, let's call it a job that you're going to go get, that you weren't qualified before you had that diploma, right? So, but it was witnessed by everybody, because now everybody in that room, everybody who signed your diploma, they know that you've met the qualifications, right? And so this is the key. This is what makes rites of passage, it's like to me, the critical thing. You know that you've done the work, they know you've done the work, and that you know what's expected of you, and you know that they know. And that's what prevents the backsliding. That's why people don't go back. Like, you can't become, once you're diplomaed, you don't become undiplomaed.
Right.
Right. Like this, like you've learned those things. Right. And so now it's time for you to go on to the next step, which in that metaphor would be a job. And so I've taken this metaphor. Well, okay, so that's the first step. So they're sequestered, and then they learn in the liminal. So it's the liminal period that's super interesting to me, because this is the space where you learn the knowledge, the skills, and the wisdom that you need to cross the threshold. But it's also a place of like infinite possibility. Infinite, like anything can happen in here. You can dream big. And this is, of course, I've taken the metaphor, and almost all of my work with people, it's on a rites of passage model. Sometimes you get to decide the threshold that you're crossing. And in fact, in most of my cases, they always get to decide, like, are we stepping into, I actually made it empty nester. Is it a new career? Is it, I just want to feel more, I want to feel more confident in my body. I want to finish that project. I want to launch the business. I want to, whatever it is, like, I want to be different than I am right now. So what are the things I need to leave behind? And what are the things I need to take with me in order to get across? And then marking that with a community ceremony and celebration that's what makes things different, because you're accountable to not just yourself. Right, you're accountable to other people, and they know. Like, the society moves forward because we're all a part of this practice. Like, we're all accountable to one another.
Right.
It's like,
And so
yeah, go on.
I'm thinking though, like the first thing that pops up to me is that loneliness is kind of an epidemic, at least in the West. We don't really have communities to witness our passage, but you have a solution for that too.
100%. Well, it's the thing I've noticed about most of my programming is that people just really want to be together. Right? I can create, like, incredible copy. I can create bad copy. I can create, the container almost doesn't matter. People just want to be together. They want to be with like-hearted people. They want to be held. They want to be able to share their fears without judgment. They want to be able to share their joys without judgment, right? Because there's a lot of unhappy people that don't want other people to be happy, right? So it's a place, we do have something called the Reunion. It's the Black Goddess Reunion, and it is a membership model that we're growing community. We have, and it's a place where you can be seen, be embraced, and be celebrated. So I won't go into all the details about that, but it's the thing that people tell me time and time again. It's like, I've been looking for this for so long. Like, I felt so out of sorts spiritually. Like, I haven't found a spiritual home. I'm not sure how to connect with my ancestors. Or maybe I am sure how to connect with my ancestors, but I'm not really sure how to execute what it is they're telling me to do. There is just something about being, well, it's belonging, right? It's belonging. And I think, I don't know if it was you, someone recently has asked me like, well, like, why are you obsessed with belonging? And it's like, well, it's because I never belonged, right? It's because I always felt out of sorts. I was like too tall, too fat, too, not black enough, too white. You think you're better than us. You talk funny. You know, what's wrong with your hair? You're from California. Like when I went to college in Tallahassee, they were like, you're a weirdo. You're from Cali. I'm like, okay. You know, I never felt, I think the one place I was comfortable was nerdy, was in like with my nerd homies. But even then, like it comes like there's always a moment where you've got to defend your blackness or explain your blackness. Right. And so I think there's something, the not belonging, and wanting to find my ancestors. That was the other thing. I also didn't belong socially because I didn't have a history, or I didn't have a history that I knew anyway when I was younger, right? And I don't know. I keep thinking these are conversations I've had with you, but maybe I didn't have them with you. Third or fourth grade, when you do the family tree exercise and everybody comes in and they're related to fucking King George or whatever. I was like, this is my great grandma. Like, and that's as far as I could go. People in my family didn't know, or they, you know, and it was heartbreaking. That was a wound for me to know, like, oh, I don't, it's like, no, you fucking have history. You belong to people. You know, even now when things happen at the kid's school, I make my husband go, I make my mom go, and I go. Because I need people to know that he has people.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, things don't really happen anymore. But in elementary school, when things happened, I was like, no, we're all going because they need to know that he has people. Like you're not here alone. And there's something about belonging to a community that has longevity, you know, that has history, like a historical, I don't really know words to say, but a historical community that puts me in like my conversation then when I'm here this is how I've been describing it. I think that we have layers. Like if like literally take my body and have a bunch of little slices through it. Like if I'm cut up and down my meridians, it's like every time I find out another piece of my history, a layer stands up. Right. And so I become more shored up and more strong and more confident and more victorious every time I know a little bit more about my history, my ancestry. And the ancestry doesn't always come from genealogical documents. Like it comes from dreams, right? It comes from messages. It comes from sitting at the altar. There's a lot of ways that the ancestors can talk to you. And so this is the platform that I want for people. I want us to all be able to have all our parts stand up. Right. I don't know where the metaphor came from. That's the metaphor I'm working with. I don't know how, like, I'm still working on a language for it, but like, I can just see the layers going, it's kind of like a phyllo dough. You know, it's got so many layers, but you know, you're missing some layers. The croissant is not right. Okay.
Amazing.
We can move on from the croissant. Clearly I want some bread.
Clearly.
Okay. So there you go. So does that answer your question?
It does, and I will just say, like, from the perspective of someone who's experienced this, you know, that the what I struggled with was, on one side, I know nothing about myself. On the other side, I don't even want to fuck with them. Like, I can feel them, I can hear them, I can see them. And so I came to you to help reconcile some conversations.
Yeah.
And have some conversations, both internally and externally, and being part of a community, being seen, being witnessed, having that rebelling against belonging recognized. I mean, talk about rites of passage and growing up just a little bit. I know that, like you're talking about, we're seeing many adults trapped in adolescence, simply not able to reconcile, simply not able to be seen, not able to establish in a community. And I just love the way that you have approached solving many of those problems.
I will tell you, the people who work with me say, so here's some of the things that they've said. I came home to myself. I discovered that the thing I thought was my biggest weakness is actually my biggest strength. I had one person say that working in this model was more valuable than all of the therapy she'd ever had. You know, where they saw possibility, our challenges, they now see possibility. Someone said that they're better at everything in life. I've had people increase the money, the amount of money they were making. One person increased their income by 10 times, 10 times.
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And it wasn't like it wasn't a business coaching situation. I wasn't helping them make more money. I was helping them turn around some of these stories around, like the ancestral wound of being married to poverty, for example. You know, it's all of this can be held, mediated, and I'm gonna say healed in community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Back to the rites of passage though, aren't rites of passage mostly just for like kids and people going through like, I don't know, like marriage or school or something?
No, absolutely not. There's certainly those are the good examples. They're the easy examples we understand, like quinceañera, bar mitzvah, sweet 16, marriage, baby shower. All of these are they don't really have necessarily the separation aspect, but they definitely have the developing the knowledge, right? The knowledge, wisdom, and the skills, and then the community ceremony and celebration. But certainly for adults who are on a spiritual journey, rites of passage are very, very useful. Um, because again, I talked to someone this morning who has she called it her secret project, so I'm gonna call it her secret project. She's got this thing she's been sitting on, and it's interesting because she's encouraged by her talking about it. She's encouraging other people to go on to do their passions, right? And so her friends are sort of all passing her by, but she, for whatever reason, she hasn't been pulled forward, right? And so she's still sticking. If we put her in a rites of passage program where there's going to be some accountability and also some community learning around how to get this project in the world, whatever the project is, but get it in the world. Um, you best believe we're going to get her across the threshold, and that thing will come into
Ooh,
the world.
you just nailed a very like poignant and juicy piece of what I feel is missing in all of the coaching, all of the business trainings and everything else is the end point. The not being in a constant state of scarcity or a constant state of goal
Yeah.
setting, but actually reaching a threshold and being recognized for it. I didn't realize that was part of the work that you were doing. That's very powerful.
It's very powerful, and I feel like it's also like it soothes my soul, right? I think it creates belonging. People know where they then stand, right? They know where what's expected of them. And granted, these are like their own expectations that they're setting, right? It's not a it's I wish there was another word I could use. It's not an expectation by society. I'm not trying to check off somebody else's. Like I'm checking my own list, the list that
Mhm.
I created. I'm going in a direction that I want. But I'm surrounded by these beautiful souls who are also working towards something. So we're moving together individually.
Okay, so in that, I'm hearing once again just kind of an embodiment of liberation, and I want to ask you for a clear definition or a personalized definition. What does liberation mean to you?
Oh, that's such a good question. What does liberation mean to me? I don't know. I don't have a clear definition just yet. I can tell you that. I will tell you that I believe that liberation is about I will tell you what the elders I've been interviewing have said. Okay? Because I mean for me it's really about choice and about being unencumbered, right? And being free from society's expectation, being free from um the predetermination of the significations of my body, right? So the but it doesn't. I don't have like a. I'm still working on the sound bite. Like I think this is a work in training, a work in progress. But here's what the elders are saying. They're saying it's your birthright. It's the daily practice of joy. It's being present. It's spiritual emancipation. I love this phrase. They're it's permission to live out our best lives. It's manifestation. It's choice. It's remembering the traditions of your ancestors, and it's having a knowing that you are here with a purpose and that you are protected. Those are the definitions that I've gotten so far.
That is massive.
Right? Like I don't think it's simple. I think that liberation is a way of being. I don't think it's a simple definition. I think it's a minute by minute decision or choice that you make. Choices. Like,
I, I,
how am I going to be free in this moment, in this scenario?
I'm seeing that. I'm learning that as a lifestyle. And I just think that the world is better for the example that you're setting of liberation as a lifestyle.
Liberation. Listen, that's the name of a program. Liberation as a lifestyle. I love it. I love it. Well, I feel like this is a good place for me to tell people about my free gift. What do you think?
Oh, yes. Listeners. Oh my gosh.
I love how excited you are, Mina. It makes me very excited. So for the free gift, you will have access to the Black Goddess Within Oracle Deck Quick Start Guide. We have revamped it. It now has some journal prompts with it. It's a beautifully with our new branding and some journal prompts to really help you. It tells you a little bit about the history of Oracle and Tarot, the development of this deck, why it's important, how to use it, and some journal prompts to get you started. So I think it's a beautiful ebook. And
It's amazing. I'm going to pop in and say, as someone who has used it, it made my dreams more vivid and it made my work more powerful. Just the quick start guide.
oh, I did not know that, Mina. That makes
Oh,
me
yeah.
happy. Yeah. And then for those of you who have not yet joined the pop-up Facebook group, Black Goddess Liberated, in the side of the group, you'll get daily recap. We're giving away prizes. We're actually going to give away a copy of this deck. I think actually we're giving away a copy every day of this deck. And we have some other prizes in a Hay House bundle and all of that. And there'll be some other surprises. And if you haven't already, please, and if you would like to have these interviews, these wisdom-laden interviews at your fingertips, you can upgrade to the All Access Pass for extended access. And every single penny from the pass goes to the Village Initiative, which is a nonprofit near and dear to my heart that nurtures the development of Black male public school teachers to address the academic achievement, social emotional learning, and the mental health needs of Black youth. And so you can do that. It'll be in the email that you get every day. And I just want to really, Mina, thank you for your time and your attention and your grace. I really appreciate your intellect. And you know what? Let's tell them a little bit about, because we didn't tell them the name of your thing.
Oh,
Are you
okay.
talking about it?
I am talking about it. The Better CEO app?
The Better CEO app. That's right.
Okay, okay. So I'm in the process of building the first tech stack for neurodivergent small business owners. The baby version is Better CEO. You can find it at betterceo.app. It's free to download, free to use, and you'll get a direct line to me through email as I continue developing this out. But I just want running a business, about 30% of small business owners in the US are people who have left the traditional workforce due to cognitive differences. And I believe with all of my being that preserving cognitive diversity is every bit as important to our technological survival as genetic diversity is to our biological survival. We have to take care of each other. We have to preserve as much diversity as possible. And so the tools that I'm building are for cognitive preservation and success.
I love it. And so what we're going to do, we'll also drop a link to the Better CEO app on the page where this interview will be found, so people can find you.
I appreciate that. And again, figuring that out and becoming confident and assured in talking about the future of work and building technology and even going into space has come from the power of being reconciled with my own past, my own sense of belonging through my dreams and journaling and this deck.
That makes me so happy, Mina. Thank you so much.
Here.
All right. And we'll see you all in the next episode of the Black Goddess Liberated. Peace.